Hello friends, Diana here from Garden Love. I am so excited to finally be doing the final steps to prep my garden for the summer. It's almost here and everything needs to go in the ground. My soil needs to get amended. We need to start putting some vegetables in the garden and get it all ready for this summer. This year I decided to prep my soil with EB Stone Soil Booster because it's full of organic matter, and that's what you need to put back into the soil you're going to be growing any vegetables or fruits in. Here I decided to give this EB Stone Soil Booster a try. I put it on top of the ground, the soil that's on the ground, which is all clay soil here in Southern California, and I decided to put a thick layer of it, water it often. And this year when I decided to dig and tilt the soil, you'll see here shortly, you're going to be able to see how easy it was for me to tilt the clay soil that I have here. So this year I'm going to add it to my raised beds because it's full of organic matter and it's going to feed all the vegetables that I decide to put here on these raised beds. Now with the help of my husband, he is basically just loosening up all the soil so we can add the EB Stone Soil Booster. As you can see here, this is what the bag looks like. We are just going to pour one bag on each one of these raised beds and then mix it in all together. We're going to do that very carefully, going around some of these chili peppers that I overwinter. That way they don't get damaged and we can still get production out of them. One thing I failed to record in this video is I did get some EB Stone fertilizer for vegetables. I pour a little bit all around it so that way we can already have some fertilizer within the soil. I also harvested some of my amazing compost and added that to this soil. I personally like to use my homemade compost in my raised beds, my fruit trees, and anywhere that I'm growing any edible plants. However, if you don't have any homemade compost, EB Stone also carries a compost bag that you can purchase from them, or you can use any other compost product that you can have access to. In my previous videos, I don't have space for a regular compost bin, so I decided to use this trash can with holes all around it. That way the worms can have access to it, and I just have to tilt everything that's inside this compost bin and just harvest my compost through the side, or maybe flipping it over and re-putting everything back in so I can have access to the bottom section of my harvest. See here, I'm gonna add some more of this EB Stone Soil Booster to my soil here that I've been prepping over the last year. I put a bag here last year and I'm gonna put another one so that way there's some nutrients for my vegetables that I'm going to be growing here in the ground. I am gonna mix it all together, as you can see, with the help of my husband. He's doing it for me. He's breaking down all that clay soil and adding the soil we just pour on here, which is the EB Stone Soil Booster. Now if you don't have access to that, you can always get any other soil amendment for you to have the ability to grow some vegetables in the ground. Spinach can take partial shade. I'm going to put some seeds down to see if I can succeed at growing some spinach here in this section of my raised bed. In this other bed, I am going to put some Swiss chard seeds to see if they succeed getting germinated here. However, I am growing some under a grow light just in case these don't germinate. To this channel, welcome to Garden Love. Please consider subscribing and give me some thumbs up if you like this video and you'd like to see some more like this. I would also love to hear from you, where you're located and what zone you are growing in, and especially would love to know what you're growing. I was doing all this gardening, I noticed somebody was watching me. And then I looked and noticed this little lizard was watching me put all the seeds in the ground. I should have mentioned this earlier. After I amended the soil, I actually let the soil sit for a few days so it can get all settled in. I also watered it for a few days so everything can get nicely amended and combined together. And now that all that's said and done, I'm going to put my determined tomatoes, because this year I'm gonna grow some determined tomatoes, because last year my indeterminate tomatoes made my whole garden look like a huge jungle and I could barely walk through. And that was a lesson I learned last year, the difference between determined and indeterminate tomatoes. So for now we're gonna do indeterminate in this narrow small space. The back of my garden, I'm also gonna be putting some determined tomatoes here, which means they're not gonna get super tall and super crazy wild like a jungle. It's gonna be more like a bush, and it's gonna be a lot more manageable. I think I'm gonna put several tomatoes in different areas in my garden. That way I can have a good amount of tomatoes to can this year, make some spaghetti sauce, share with my family, neighbors if they're in need. As you can see here, I found another little spot that I'm going to be putting another determined tomato. Another thing I learned last year is that tomatoes can grow just about anywhere where they can have access to some sun and a place to root and spread their roots deeply so they can grow and have a good foundation to grow all those delicious tomatoes. Last year I grew 3 indeterminate tomatoes that were the Cherokee kind. They were amazing. I absolutely love it. And I also grow several indeterminate cherry tomatoes that went absolutely crazy. So from learning about indeterminate and determined tomatoes last year, I'm going with indeterminate tomatoes. And I know now that they pretty much can grow anywhere. So excited that I was lucky enough to have access to all these tomatoes that were already grown from seed and they were ready to get put in the ground. As you can see, I have way too many. So for that reason, I'm literally gonna put them everywhere I find a sunny spot and see how well they do in my garden. And since I have so many, I'm gonna experiment to see what part of my garden they do better. So next year, when I get some more of these amazing onions, I am going to know exactly where to plant them. That's one thing I learned last year. I learned that all the tomatoes can go in the ground with this clay soil as long as you amend it a little bit and it gets a little bit of sun. This year I'm going to learn all about onions and exactly where they grow the best and what conditions they grow the best. As you can see here at the beginning of my garden, I'm going to put them in the soil, and that soil is already amended. I'm also going to put some in this little container to see how well they do there. And with this little container is going to be fun, because if I see that they're not doing well, I'm going to be able to move them to a different location. If I notice that they're getting too much sun or not enough sun, this is ideal since it's in a movable mobile container. I'm also going to put some in my raised beds that you can see right behind this little container. I'm going to put it in the back side. That way I can see if they can do well under a little bit of shade, actually a lot of shade with a little bit of sun. And this is going to help me determine exactly where these onions will do best in future years. Onions in the past and you have a lot of experience, I would love to hear from you. Any tips, advice, comments would be greatly appreciated, because I am here learning and sharing everything that I'm learning and the progress. That way you guys can learn from my mistakes and learn from my success. As you can see here, I am practically growing onions absolutely everywhere in my garden. Anywhere you can find a little patch of soil, I am going to put some onions, as I'm doing here. Basically all you do is do a little line so you can put and lay down the onions. Once you lay them down, you're just gonna put the soil together so they can get upright, and that is it. Give it a good watering and they're gonna look as beautiful as you can see them here. It is amazing. I absolutely love them.
Friends, so I don't know if you guys remember, in a previous video I was wondering what I could possibly be growing in the shady parts of my garden, and I discovered that ginger actually likes to grow in smaller parts, shady parts of the garden. They prefer afternoon shade, and this area definitely has afternoon shade. So therefore I'm going to be taking these ginger that I purposely purchased so I can start growing them, and back there would be the ideal space. So what I'm going to do is just break these apart into sections and just put them in the ground, as easy as that sounds. I have several of them, so I'm going to probably put a total of 6. Normally nothing grows well back there because, like I mentioned, it gets sun but mostly shade. It is bright, so it should work. Maybe you guys can see that. Let's see. I'm going to just be planting it every 6 inches. There we go.
That concludes this video. My garden is finally ready for the summer. I can't wait to give you guys a garden tour, a complete full garden tour, and show you guys everything that I have going on. And if you're wondering why I put this clip, the little guy that was spying on me ended up falling into this container that I later had to save. Don't worry, he's fine. Have a blessed day.